Please call roll.
Mark Arnold.
Here.
Whitney Hall.
Here.
Marvin Kusick.
Here.
Eddie Mack.
Here.
David Mason.
Here.
Cole Ream.
Here.
Don Roberts.
Here.
James Simonek.
Here.
David Trojan.
Here.
Jonathan Waddell. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Carla. I hereby call the April normally scheduled meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission to order. And my first order of business, I'd like to say that we've got a new member, Mr. David Trojan. So if you all would welcome him, I'm glad to have him with us. Okay, the first item on the agenda is to consider approval of the minutes of the regular Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting of March the 19th, 2018. You have those in front of you. If you would, please take a look at those. I will accept a motion to approve those.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as they're printed. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And
Just
that
please note
motion.
my abstention since I wasn't a member of this body at that time.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll skip down to item number 5, use by review. Conduct a hearing and consider a use by review for David Henneman for an impound and salvage yard located at 1110 West Chestnut, which is also known as tract number 880 in the southeast quarter of Section 1, Township 22 North, Range 7 West Indian Meridian. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commission members, the slide in front of you is the use by review that we're considering under this item. It shows the general neighborhood around the property outlined in yellow. My next slide brings you in just a little bit closer to the property that we're considering. It is zoned I3 heavy industrial, and one cannot operate an impound or salvage yard without first getting a use by review from the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and that is why we're here this evening. And we go through that process in our ordinance. It takes us to our business license, which is under Title 3, Chapter 10, and that's where we find the criteria for evaluating a use by review. The layout plan will be my next slide, but the things that we're looking at here is A, the plan needs to show the location and size of the area involved. The plan I'm going to show you does not do that. We work with the applicant through aerial photos that I showed you. My first slide captures that. So check that's off. That is done. B is tied right to A, all the improvements within 300 feet. I showed that to you in the aerial photo. It's available to you. We can go back to that if you want to ask questions about that. C, location and type of screening. My code official has reviewed the plan and has a conditional recommendation to you, and it surrounds screening. When we get to that part of our presentation, I'll have our code official address you. D, the location and storage areas of sales office, that is on his plan. The location of the curb cuts on the property, you'll see that on his plan, and then the general layout, access of fire roads within the salvage yard or impound lot is there as well, and that has been reviewed by the fire marshal. Here is the plan. This is the best quality I could give you on my slide. I apologize that you have those in your packet, and I think you can see the details there better. But based on the criteria we have for evaluating use by review, here is the curb cut. This is Chestnut. So on this drawing, north would be down. So here's the curb cut. Here's the sales office, the receiving area, and the fire access. So all of those elements are in place. We do require, the ordinance does require screening from the road wherever it's visible. He's indicated he's going to have screening here along the south part and along his east property line. Are there any questions thus far? My next slide is where my code official talks about the conditions, and I'll have Angela come up and present that piece to you. Angela?
This is the one about the fence, though. Dana, do you have the rest of the pictures that were behind It's in the rest of Chris's presentation.
It's behind the slides that we were just looking at there.
Okay. My concerns when I reviewed the plan is it all has to do with the screening. I just don't believe that it meets the requirements of the ordinance. The screening is not opaque. It's not 6 feet in height. There is a lower elevation on that east side of the property. Our ordinance states that the screening needs to be at least 6 feet in height, and that's the minimum. So if it needs to be higher to provide the appropriate screening, then that's what should happen. I had some heels on that day. Even with heels, that probably put me at about 5'11", and as you can see, the fence with the screening is lower than my height, so certainly not high enough to provide any sort of screening. And the material, you can see through. Where the metal fencing is, that's more appropriate. That is what we typically see around salvage yards and impound lots that are not grandfathered in. So the only issue that we would have with this metal fencing is that per the fence ordinance, it needs to be even with the earth and then capped up off on the top of it.
Those are my slides, Angela.
Okay.
In case there was a discussion about what does opaque mean. And there's Webster there, click it one more time. And then there's the Oxford definition. So I offered
So sorry.
Mr. Chairman, we have, I believe, 4 people signed up to speak to this issue. Sean was correct. Thank you.
Sir, as you get up, would you please state your name? Come up to the podium and state your name again.
Sean Luttrell.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I am neighbor to the Henningmans. I've been with Yellow House going on 18 years as of next month. We've never had any true disputes with our neighbors. Got along with them just fine for this long and plan on continuing to do so. As long as they've been in the well drilling business or remanufacturing of the well drilling equipment, the place was fairly kept up. I mean, not really organized, didn't have any, so to speak, fencing other than chain link, which is what we also have at Yellow House. But as they started to clean up and move the new operation in, you can honestly see that, or obviously see that it's compounding, and we're really concerned about the amount of stuff that he's gonna be able to put in such a small lot size. When I think of salvage yards or impound yards, typically as I've grown up to see, I mean, you've got cars stacked on cars, you have true fire lanes, you know, it was kind of hard to see on the drawing, so maybe there is a true fire lane plan there. I couldn't really make it out. It's gonna be hard for them to get around, maintain the grasslands. Even if they put up a 6-foot fence, obviously that doesn't cover what you see there, which is a wrecked wall hauler trailer. We have put a lot of time and money and investment into making our piece of property better. We continue to improve at all times. I feel like everybody should have that obligation. If they could keep it up and make it very presentable and show that they're gonna do more for the property, the community, and the area for us to help us feel good about having them as a good neighbor. I think we could work something out, you know. We don't hold it against them. We like the idea of a small businessman making a living, earn a living at what they do well. But when it affects the community, affects our close community there, I think it has an impact on all of us. I mean, I'm sure maybe you've gotten letters, maybe you haven't, and maybe some of the other speakers have something different to say, but the concern is the lot size for the proposition of the business. I do not believe, my father owned a salvage yard when I was growing up, and it was on acres, not what appears to be maybe 2, and I just don't think it's gonna hold it. So that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you for your time. Sir?
Chairman, the next person who'd like to speak is Todd Burdick.
Again, sir, if you would.
Hi, my name's Todd Burdick. I agree with everything that guy says. If you take a ride, does anybody know where the other junkyards are in town? I'm sure they all do. Can you kind of picture what they look like right now? Get an idea. If this gets approved to be this way, this junkyard will look like those junkyards in a matter of a year or less. The fence is terrible. The pink flamingos are a joke. I don't know if you can see the pink flamingos in that picture. The white steel part is a nice attempt, but it's in bad shape. It's rusty, needs paint. I own property just down the street that fronts on Chestnut. I think what he's doing to their building is great. I have a new building there. I rent a building that I have improved and re-landscaped to make look pretty. If we're gonna have a junkyard, they need to be in all the junkyard spaces together. But putting a junkyard in that location is a bad idea. It's going to it's going to get worse. What it looks like right now is the best it will ever look. I promise you that. And if you don't believe me, go look at the other junkyards, because they all started out from about where this guy is now. I think the small businessman should have an opportunity to make money. I don't disagree with that at all. But I don't think that is the right location for a junkyard. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
Next person is Garrett Mercer. Did I say that right? Mercer? You signed up. Do you want to speak on this item?
I'm Garrett Mercer. I worked for Dave for about 4 months. Whatever this guy, all that dude's saying, he has no idea. He doesn't know what we do every day. He doesn't watch us. I drive trucks for Dave. Yeah, he's probably right that it could look better, but hey, it's a working process, man. There's no other way that we can do this in a month. I want to see this guy get up a fence in a month by himself. There ain't no way. Not even a construction crew can get a fence up in a month. Not a steel fence, not welding, moving cars, doing calls. That cattle trailer, let's see him go out there and do it in a record. Guarantee you he can't. This whole thing is, man, I love Dave, he's a great boss. But man, this whole thing of the mesh fence, yeah, it was temporary. How do you guys know that we're not gonna put a steel fence up? Temporary fix. Whatever. Stanley's have a fence that can go up that high to block a trailer? Probably not. Southside? Guarantee you they don't. So with us being 6 foot, yeah, it might be a little short, but hey, gotta do what you gotta do. But Stanley's ain't gonna have a fence to hide that. He can't even hide a semi. There ain't no way. But that's all I'm gonna say about it. Thank you, guys.
Can I ask a question while we have you? Yeah. So one of the things that you will be doing, if granted the salvage lot designation, is receiving quite a bit of different automobiles, trailers, such as what you have. With the equipment that you have, how do you normally offload from the street? You know, if you're receiving a load?
If we receive it, we just drive in. We got enough, we can get a semi in there. I can put a semi in there. Hang on. Yeah, we might have to move a couple things. My truck in general, because I got a big old truck. I might have to move it, but it'll still get in there. There's plenty of room to get a trailer, tractor trailer in there.
Do you typically drive straight in? Do you back in? How do you?
Straight in at the beginning.
Okay,
Ain't no problem. Thank you.
thanks.
The
last person signed up to speak is David Hingeman.
Good evening. I'm Steve Singer. I'm David's attorney, and if I may, I'd like to address the body on that basis. We've sat here and we've heard all of the concerns, and first I want to say how nice we've been treated by city staff. They have really helped us. It's true, we're in the salvage and impound business, not fence builders or construction persons. The steel that we got, which is our best, and we put that in the front because that was our best material, is material that he's accumulated over time. So to do this with an economic eye towards staying in business, the mesh screen, we feel like, is perfectly compliant with not only the letter but the spirit. The principal, we think, advantage of this mesh screen is that it's relatively inexpensive and it goes up really fast. It is opaque, as that term is defined, and there are also ways that we can, if in your wisdom, if we need to double up on the mesh, I think we can do that. It's expensive, but we can do it. And if you put 2 layers of the mesh, it's not only opaque, it's beyond opaque. With respect to the height and a woman in heels and this sort of thing, we're not objecting to any of that. If the first attempt that we did to try to show proof of concept and let staff drive by and look at what we're doing so they could approve it, it didn't work out for them. It was 6 inches or a foot and a half too low. So if you've noticed, where the concern is all been taken down. The men have welded some support stakes, metal, to bump it up. We've got some railroad ties that we're going to put at the bottom to allow that to be completely fenced in from high or low, and that's happening. We were wanting to get it done so you all could have seen it prior, but the wind was too heavy, just too windy. But if you give us the approval, we're not dodging anything. We're going to address all that. The business about our nice neighbors, we're not going to get in any kind of a fight with any of our prosperous neighbors. That's not our way. We want to comply and be a good neighbor. The thing about our location, which we've owned for a long, long, long time, is that it is heavy industrial. We're in a heavy industrial business. We're right there by the railroad yard. We're right where we ought to be. The fact that we have neighbors, that there's houses in the neighborhood, it's really irrelevant in the sense that this little isolated burg, it couldn't be more industrial. We think that our use is appropriate. I would note that the pictures that happened to be on display just happened to show what was in place at that moment, but it should be ever-changing, such that if you see something that annoys, or if our neighbor sees something that annoys, it'll soon enough be gone. That's the nature of the business. What we're hoping is that by making a good faith effort to really get into these statutes or the city code and do what's necessary and even redo it, which we're cheerfully doing, all we want to do is, with your permission, is try to stay in business. And it's a hustle. And this business about what the other salvage yards are doing, it's all well and good, but what it illustrates is how competitive the business is. We're pouring the money into this that we need to pour in so that we can be good with the office of the city and your office as well. But we would ask that you not close us off because of these complaints that you're hearing. Not exactly sure what's driving the complaints, except that we are good neighbors and we're going to be good citizens. If you all have any questions, what I would like to highlight is our flexibility. You tell me how high to jump and I'm jumping. Sir? Yes, sir.
What are you planning on, any kind of environmental buffer around there? Control your oil runoff, heavy metals?
They are so sensitive about that sort of thing. They're very compliant with those sorts of things. I think you'll find, as the fire marshal, when he did his inspection, DEQ and whatnot, that there are no problems. If you're aware of something, if you have some feeling that there's something hinky going on, please tell us or tell the appropriate authorities. But otherwise, these guys have been in business for so long They know the tricks of the trade or what you have to do to remain compliant. Our biggest deficiency is we don't have an unlimited budget to throw up those fancy fences. We're trying to do it the way, with apologies to Steinbeck, a way an Okie would do it, and that fencing material is awfully cost-effective. It's priced by the yard, and we can double up on it if you tell us to, and it's a good little fence.
Do you have a letter from the DEQ or something, or?
Nobody's ever complained about it. You're the first person I've ever heard say anything about anything. If you have something you want me to address, I will. But otherwise, we're getting licensed with you. We're doing what other entities require licenses. But we start with the city. We're Enid people, and you all are Enid authorities.
At what time did you, or the company as a whole, decide to go in the direction of salvage?
Well, I don't know that I've only known them for 30 years, and they go back deeper than that. But I think that's always been sort of part of the overall mix. I don't know that it was. I know David, the kid in the family, had a lot in a different location. His dad is ailing. You don't need to hear all this, but there's some family stuff going on where they're trying to consolidate. But the point, I think, the larger point is that we've got our map. We got the fire marshal out there. They wanted our lanes wider. We made them wider. You tell us something to do, we'll do it. We're just trying to stay in business and not get run out of our own town.
So you have a licensed salvage yard at a different location?
Well, I guess I don't really know about that. All I know, I got hired on the fence, okay? I don't know all that much about DEQ. I know except that if they were screwing up, somebody would have already brought it to the government's authority. I don't know about other locations. All I'm saying is that this is industrial. It's absolutely perfect for their use. It's by rail spur. It's by the highway. As you've already pointed out, you can get in and out with TVs. It really is pretty large. It's true that while we were putting the fence up and trying to get things organized and get those lanes, that as the Yellow House people have observed, there's been a lot of action. It used to be kind of Deadsville over at Henningman, but in the last few months, it's been very busy as we're trying to get this figured out and put together. I don't think that it's going to be an eyesore. I think that as he sources more of those metal panels, that's the long-term engineering solution, they're going to go up. But ladies and gentlemen, they might go up 1 or 2 or 5 at a time. It just depends on where you get them and how quickly you can get them into ship shape. Since the photos have been taken, they've painted it, which I think enhanced the beauty. These are people really trying, ladies and gentlemen. They're not trying to ignore y'all's concerns. We're trying to embrace them.
I have
Sir?
a question.
Yes, sir.
If you're applying to have an impound salvage yard, but is this already operating as a salvage yard?
No, it is, David maybe will have to speak for himself as far as what his dad does. They had oil rigs and they are water drilling rigs, and they would be brought in for rehab, and it would require disassembly and all this, sort of heavy industrial kind of stuff. So it may look to an observer as if there's, who knows what's going on back there, but no impound and no salvage until you all tell us it's okay.
Because the trailer in the picture looks like a salvage trailer to me.
Well, we're draw your own conclusions. I don't really know. I'm a lawyer. If you want to get Mr. Henningman up here and talk to him about that's fine. What we're trying to do is present ourselves as a good, proper citizen that's not up here complaining about stuff. We're asking, what do I have to do to stay in business? You tell me. If we can afford it, we'll do it.
Taken.
Do we know when this photo, this satellite image was created? I know Google Maps and things doesn't exactly, it's a day-to-day.
We regularly participate in the aerial photos, and Robert, are they every 2 years? Or is it 3?
That'd be every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Do we know, so the oldest that could be is 2 years?
Well,
So our aerial photos are relatively current.
Okay, so this could be up to 2 years old then?
It could, yes. Our budget allows us to fly every 2 years.
But some of the vehicles have been there longer than the 2 years.
Well, I know that, like, the car his mother died in is out there. I mean, they own it. I don't know that there's customer cars there.
Is it an operable vehicle with the current tag and title?
Who? The death
The-
car?
the
I don't
mother's
know.
car?
I don't know. But, I mean, I think what I'm trying to illustrate is that it might be some of their stuff, not customer stuff.
I actually have
We don't know for sure.
what,
I'm just looking at some of the recent photos versus the aerial photos. I can
Right.
make out some of the vehicles are in the same spot, the same vehicle.
yeah. And per code, after 90 days, any inoperable vehicle, whether that's for a repair shop or anything else, that automatically has to go to salvage. So if,
The difference is, of course, if it is being displayed for sale
Correct.
at a retail facility,
And it'd be operable too.
yes,
most of the time, yes.
typically,
Unless it's some classic or something that's.
yes. Yes. So, part of my concern is that currently, based on the definition of our code, my understanding is this would be a non-conforming property. So, it's a non-conforming use of building and structure. So, a change within the code itself, maybe change to a less objectionable use of a more restrictive zone, not to a use of a less restrictive zone, nor shall non-conforming use be changed to another use of the same classification. So, this property has been in ownership, as you mentioned, for quite some time, but that was bought as a drilling company, which means it's been more than a year that has lapsed since it was previously a salvage yard, so that status has relapsed. So at this time, we're not up to code. And the use by review, 1114-1A, specifically allows for careful consideration of the impact of the particular uses upon the surrounding neighborhood and the public facilities therein. With where I work, I know we have semi-traffic come in quite regularly, and it is quite a feat to do a turnaround. If you back in straight and back out on a single lane, I'd be very concerned about trying to pull that semi out into Chestnut as an arterial street.
You mean back into Chestnut?
So-
Well, nobody would do that.
So you're stopping on Chestnut and then backing into the property?
I think, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a trucker, but if you've ever been out there, there's a huge open expanse that you can whip around in. So I know these professional drivers, skilled as they are, ought to be able to go in and go out. I don't know what you're worried about in terms of backing into Chestnut, but I agree that somebody could do something stupid on Chestnut Street, absolutely. However, why that would bar this man from operating his business, the fear that somebody might do something that we would hope wouldn't stop us from engaging in our trade.
We have a letter that addresses that.
Yes.
Actually, two.
There's
We've
two
got a
separate
letter
letters.
actually notes, it's from a property owner across the street, that there's been some loading and offloading done on their property that Enid Diesel does not have permission to use.
Are they here to,
And I have heard complaints about trucks and lowboys and things blocking the street. I have no doubt of this gentleman's ability to drive a truck, but it just seems like there's a really small entrance there, swing, especially looking at a trailer there that takes up a good portion of one of the impound areas. I am concerned about some of what we've received in the letters about traffic tie-ups and trucks on the road.
And that's specifically referenced in Chapter 4, 4-4-1C, obstructs or tends to obstruct, et cetera, street, highway, public parking, et cetera. And knowing that that's a 2-lane road, it's one of the main thoroughfares through town, to routinely be blocking that property would be a tendency to obstruct.
Of course, the presupposition is that we're continuously blocking it. I have no idea about the complaints. I didn't hear any verbalization of that sort of complaint, but I'm not challenging anything. I'm just saying how difficult it is for somebody in my position to address all of these concerns when they aren't particularly well formulated, or explained to me. I understand we can all conceive of situations that could be unsightly or dangerous. I just don't think they're going to materialize, and if they do, it'll be behind a fence.
Well, part of the concern about the fence is that it's a 6-foot minimum fence. The purpose of the fence is to obstruct any view of that, which I don't know how high the fence would have to be to obstruct it from that overpass that goes right there. So.
Well, are you really going to hold us to that kind of a standard?
That happens to be where it's at.
All right. Well, of course, helicopters, drones, overpasses, double-decker buses, I could conceive of many, many things that a lady in high heels that gets right up on the highest part and live, all I'm telling you is we're raising the fence. We've already got the stakes done on the area of concern, and it's going up. She said 7.5 feet. That's how high it's going up, okay? We didn't get it done in order to prove it to you. We just assumed if we were lucky enough to get your approval, it would be conditional upon that happening. And since we want to do it, and we're trying to do it, and but for the wind, we would have done it, that is not a concern. I mean, it is a concern that we're going to embrace. We're with you. We don't want people looking over. 7.5 feet was the number, and that's what we're going to do.
Earlier, you mentioned that the fencing would be taken care of as monies allow. Is there a timeline on that?
What I meant to say was that we are admittedly using our vinyl alternative because it's cost effective, and we were able to immediately show proof of concept to city staff and to you. But these fellas, they accumulated those panels for the purpose of building this fence, and as they come into their possession, we're Okies, we're not going to pay full price, but we can get them through a salvage means. We'll do it. But what I can't do is make a promise. All I can promise is, because the code of our city requires it, that fence stay in good shape. Okay?
So looking at Section 4-4-3 abatement, should we grant you the salvage status and any of these neighbors then protest that the site is a nuisance, as part of that, if notice is published, the person in charge shall have 10 days from the last publication in order to abate such nuisance. Would you be prepared as a business to be able to have the fencing completed within 10 days of publication?
Well, if the government is bearing down on any small business owner, they better be prepared to react appropriately, so we would be no different. If you're going to put if you're giving me a hypothetical and giving me a hypothetical 10 days to finish a hypothetical fence, I don't know if you mean east, west, south, or whatever, I'll say yes, we can do it. Well, what would you expect me to say? However, I think that going in, we're trying to be so compliant going in that hopefully the fear will abate, particularly as we get our 1.5 foot higher fence up. And if in your wisdom you want us to double up on our fencing material, which we can do, then we will do that. And I think at that level, we've behaved in accordance with common practice. We're following not only the letter, but the spirit of your ordinances. We live here too. anything we do to improve our property improves us too. So we're with you, we're not against you. We're just begging you, I suppose, at some level, to allow us to engage in salvage activity and this other activity. It's a dirty, filthy, heavy business. We've in the dirty, filthy, heavy zoned area to do it. And our neighbors are train yards. We've got bulldozers next door. It's all a happy family out there. And we're going to put our fence up. The fire marshal's already approved, and if I may be so bold, that photo was taken whenever it was taken, but we weren't thinking about what we're doing now. We invite you to come out and look at it. There's plenty of space there, and as we move and clean the house, and if you ever dealt with slobs, a lot of us, it's going to take them a while, but with your motivation and what conditions perhaps you give us, we can get this cleaned up. This is not difficult. It's not difficult,
Why hasn't that been done so far if it's not so clean?
Well, part of it might be that we didn't appreciate how concerned you all were going to be. And part of it might be that thinking that being behind a fence gives us a certain amount of privacy that would allow us to engage in our business as we see fit. But if it is a concern, if aerial photos taken by spy satellites are going to be part of the concern, if driving over the overpass at the legal speed limit and whatever you can glimpse as you drive by is a concern, we're going to try to address it, okay? I would say we had the misfortune of, we had that big trailer, that looks so bad, but it's my understanding this stuff comes and goes. It's not a permanent fixture or yard art. Instead, it's a commercial enterprise, and as the crusher comes to take the wrecked cars to be made into scrap, et cetera, that's sort of the ebb and the flow, much like our neighbors. One day they'll be offloading the biggest equipment you ever saw, and the next day the birds will be singing, and it's like you're out in a pasture. It just depends on what's going on. But again, heavy industrial.
So they're planning on bringing car crushers in?
No, I'm saying that that's part of the, as my understanding of this business is that what a normal human might consider an eyesore comes and goes. It's not a permanent fixture that you must look at every day until you are retire.
One of the concerns I have is that you're asking to be compliant at your time frame and convenience, when I know that a lot of other businesses, they have their occupancy certificates withheld until they are 100% in compliance. And when you say we're going to try to, piecemeal this together, and we're going to get a piece here and there, and, we're just going to put it up at our convenience, and when we have money, I wish I had the ability to be code compliant when it's convenient to me.
Mr. Ream, I misspoke, if that is the conclusion that you drew. What I intended to say is that we are fully compliant today, I think. They want us to raise it an extra 1.5 feet. We're going to do that tomorrow. And we understand that if you give us the permission to do our business, that it'll be conditioned on that.
Angela, is he code compliant fully today? Could you address that for me, please?
No, he is not. He's operating unlawfully, and we've asked him to cease operation until he came in front of this board.
Okay.
Unlawfully because of the fence?
Meaning he does not have a license to operate the
So
type
they
of...
are now operating a salvage yard?
Correct.
That was my question a while ago.
Yes.
Okay.
I got another question. And he mentioned that he's going to use railroad ties to raise the fence? That's not something in compliance?
No, that is not listed, and a fence permit should have been issued prior to any installation of additional fencing that was not already existing. The chain link fence was there before. All of this other stuff has been added when we notified them that they needed to get a proper license.
Thank you, Angela. All right, do we have any other people that need to speak?
No, sir.
No, sir?
No, sir.
I don't have any other people that are signed up. I'm sorry, but you have to be signed up, sir. If there are no other personnel that need to speak.
Have you applied for your license to move your location through the Used Motor Vehicle and Parts Commission? Have you made that application yet? Yes, sir. Okay. It's my understanding the Used Motor Vehicle and Parts Commission requires a letter from the municipality in which the salvage yard or something is in. I was just curious. Okay. Okay.
Okay, if we have no other people that need to speak, I would call for a motion.
Based on the potential impacts, the struggle to identify what needs to happen to comply with code and therefore follow through with it, I see this at this time as being detrimental to the neighbors and would move to deny.
Second.
I have a motion to deny and a second for the salvage yard on 1110 West Chestnut. All those in favor, or all those in favor of the denial? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the denial is valid. Okay. Item number 2, use by review, is to conduct a hearing and consider a use by review for a private clubhouse to be located at 3402 North Oakwood, which is a tract of land located in the northeast quarter of Section 34, Township 23 North, range west of the Indian Meridian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide in front of you is the next step of the Methodist Circle of Care. We were in front of the Planning Commission a couple of months ago where they sought to rezone their property from agricultural to R2, just refreshing your memory, and we're back today for a use by review to have a private clubhouse which will serve this facility. Later in the agenda, I have a horizontal dashed line along there with a new lot line. We're also going to split the property so we can have the second home. So there will be 2 homes on this property, and the clubhouse will serve both, and we can review those under a use by review. Unlike the previous use by review, this is different criteria, but it's still a use by review. And for our new commissioner, I want to go over this because we routinely on our monthly meetings will have rezonings, lot splits, use by review. And since it's the first time you've heard these, we'll go a little bit in detail over these. So we look at 4 criteria. What's its effect on the adjacent properties? Is there adequate utility, drainage, parking, et cetera, traffic impact, and then will the use emit any noxious odors? In our opinion as staff, it meets this 4 criteria. It's recommended for approval. Are there any questions?
Do you have anyone signed up to speak for it, Chris?
No, sir.
My understanding is the new building has frontage on Oakwood and would have a drive coming off of Oakwood. Is that
I
correct?
have not seen the plans for the new home. This is my artwork here that I drew to explain the use by review. It's conceptual, but we have addressed the bigger box, which will be the new home off of Oakwood, and yes, there will be some kind of driveway to serve that home. But they have not submitted their building plan yet.
And the clubhouse is just to serve those 2 houses? Is
Yes.
that what I understand? Okay.
Yes. That's right.
There'll be a lot of parking and stuff needed for that.
No, it's private.
Public safety with this, so. I'd make a motion to approve it.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the use by review for the 3202 North Oakwood. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that is unanimous. Okay, our next is lot splits. Consider a lot split for Oklahoma United Methodist Circle of Care Incorporated, located at 3402 North Oakwood Road, which is also known as a tract of land in the northeast quarter of Section 34, Township 23 North, Range 7 west of the Indian Meridian. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is exactly why the church sought rezoning, is because they want to build a second single family, and R2 allows that. What's before us this evening is how they're going to split their property, and the property is outlined in yellow, and then this represents the split. And when we look at a lot split, we want to make sure that the remaining, will be the new lot. Does it have access to a street? The answer is yes. And does it have access to water? Yes. Does it have access to sanitary sewer? And does the lot conform to the lot size for R2? So all those checks are complete. And we also look at the remnant piece that left over. Does it have access to road, water, and sewer and meet the area requirements? And in this case, it does. The next slide is simply the, I explained all those to you. There's the survey. It's recommended for approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the lot split located on 3402 North Oakwood Road. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that is unanimous. Our next lot split is located at 5203 on Enterprise Boulevard, which is known as part of the northeast quarter of Section 2, Township 22 North, Range 6 west of the Indian Meridian. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another lot split. This is a commercial lot split. I need to make you aware that in your packets that I delivered to you last week, I had the yellow box drawn incorrectly. I showed it in your packet in this area, and that was wrong, and we have it corrected in this picture before you this evening. And so just like the previous lot split, we want to make sure that we have access to a road. And in this case, it will be Enterprise Drive, and we have sewer and water. It's recommended for approval. And my last slide is the survey. There it is. Are there any questions?
Motion to accept.
Motion approved. Motion and second to approve that lot split located on 5203 on Enterprise Boulevard. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? And that is unanimous. And lastly, we have a sidewalk variance. Consider a request for variance to the city ordinance 10-6-1, sidewalks required for property located at 310 East Harvard Avenue. Robert.
Yes. Chairman and Commissioners, we did receive a request from actually the owner at 310 Harvard. They actually developed, expanded, and added to their building about a 5,000 square foot facility to an existing 5,000 foot building. They're on 310 Harvard. The road and standard requires for an addition of industrial on an industrial site, which they're zoned to include sidewalks, so it's a requirement. There is an exception for not requiring sidewalks on unimproved roads. However, Harvard was a slurry sealed road, so although it appears to be gravel, it was approved, so it's considered an improved road per the ordinance. So for that reason, they have asked for a variance placing a sidewalk at the location.
Has anybody been down Harvard? Has anybody here used this road? I can tell you don't drive down Harvard, you drive on what's left of it. And so there are no houses around this business, is there, Robert?
There are no residential use. There is the house to the west is actually in commercial use. This is a commercial facility. Any pedestrian traffic, there's no school traffic or pedestrian traffic or other commerce. It's basically industrial use. So it doesn't have a lot of use for the sidewalk, but it is a requirement. And administratively, we can't say it's not an unimproved road because it was improved at one time.
Very good. Motion to approve the variance.
Second that.
I have a motion and second to approve the variance for the location at 310 East Harvard Avenue. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? And that's unanimous. And the last item is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.